The Love Your Podcast is a combination of humor, science, and real-world experience to help you break the battles with food, exercise, mindset, and your body. From head to toe, inside and out, this podcast has you covered. I'm your host and founder of the Fit Mom Revolution, Julie Stubblefield. Welcome. Hello, beautiful listeners. Welcome back to Love Your Podcast. Thank you again for a little bit of space in your ear this week. If you are new to the podcast, first of all, welcome. Second of all, make sure that you go back and start with episode 74 and work your way through to this one. We're doing a mini series, so to speak, on compassion, and each episode builds a little bit more on the previous one. So I want you to get the full picture of what's going on. So make sure you go back to 74 and listen all the way through. If you have been participating so far, thank you so much. We have this episode, and then next week's episode is the final discussion around compassion, where we pull everything together and really examine how this matters to you and why you should care and why you should make the efforts in terms of body compassion, how we pull all these pieces together and showing compassion to your body. But before we can do that, we've got one more little thought process, one little piece in there, one more little thing for you to consider. In the two most recent exercises, I had you think about what it's like to receive compassion to others. And then I also had you think about what it's like to show compassion to others. What if you were to marry the two? What if you were to blend them? If you're thinking about receiving compassion and it makes you feel warm and loved and accepted and understood, and if you're thinking about what it's like to give it and it makes you feel loving and nurturing, why can't you do that for yourself? Why shouldn't you do that for yourself? That is the very genesis of how we create a positive relationship with ourselves so that we can move forward. If we know that showing compassion feels good and we know that receiving compassion feels good, we should be able to do that for ourselves. Let's be honest. We can't rely on other people to always give us what we want and what we need. And in fact, external validation is a slippery slope. But if we can give it to ourselves, it gets us through. It gets us over those rough patches. It heals old wounds. And it creates a brighter future for where we're going, just by showing ourselves compassion. So between now and next week, when we kind of pull all of this together to how this applies to your body, I want you to think about some things. If you were to show compassion to yourself, what would you say? What would you forgive? What would you acknowledge? What would you relieve for yourself? What kind of understanding can you show yourself? Where can you comfort yourself? What does all of that look like for you? I'll be honest with you, this is probably the hardest one out of all of these. And that's okay. Don't shy away from it. Don't hit stop and never come back to this episode. Don't say, Julie's has no idea what she's talking about. I'm never listening to her again. This is hard because our society teaches us that we don't need to rely on ourselves. Our society teaches us that, if we have to have that soft, tender spot with ourselves, then we're weak. No. Everything we do starts with us. Every relationship that you have starts with yourself. The way you interact with food, exercise, starts with yourself. the way you receive criticism, the way you receive praise, the way that you receive any type of conversation, all starts with the relationship that you have with yourself. And when it is a compassionate one, when it is one that has come from a place of understanding and not wanting to enhance suffering and wanting to relieve pressure, then you have the opportunity to change the landscape of every relationship that you have outside of yourself. You have the opportunity to create a place of beauty, a path with less friction. The opportunities are endless, and it starts with showing compassion to ourselves. Give that some thought. Even if you just spend 2 minutes on it. If you want to spend 2 minutes a day, even better. Thank you again for tuning in this week. Spend the next 7 days thinking about what it would be like to show yourself compassion, understanding, and support. Next week, we wrap this up and pull it all towards showing compassion to your body. Until then, be well. I've put together some free resources around this very subject. I'd love for you to participate. You can go to fitmomrevolution.com and click the tab that says free resources. Super easy access, and all free for you.